Hello, everyone, and welcome back once again. This is the first MMA Impact India virtual event. I hope you guys are enjoying the sessions and taking note of all the insightful details that are being presented to you by the speakers. Just to remind you once again, the event is going to take place for 2 days. Tomorrow, we start sharp at 1:50 p.m. Also, we would like to thank all our partners and sponsors for making this possible. Presenting sponsor InMobi and Sony Live, program and streaming partner Unreal Engine, Masterclass partner Google, corporate partners Ad Colony and Oracle. All right, so now we're back to business. Today, gaming is the biggest mass marketing channel, similar to what social media marketing was 15 years back. The stereotype of gamers is changing from all age groups and social demographics. It's more female, affluent, and older than you might think. So our next session of the day is Unlock the Missed Opportunity Around Gaming, for which I would like to welcome Mr. Tom Simpson, Senior Vice President, APAC Ad Colony, and joining him, Ithamar Benedy, co-founder and CEO, Anzu.io, Mr. MVS Murthy, Head Marketing, Digital and Corporate Communications, Tata Mutual Fund is with us as well. And the moderator for the session, Ms. Anusha Shetty, Chairperson and Group CEO, Grey and Autumn Grey. Anusha, over to you.
Thank you, Raman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and moderate this session today. I think this is one industry that's really taken all of us by storm. Gaming, I have a teenager growing at home, and I can tell you that I never see him. In fact, I think we live a very different time zone. I never see him during the day, and he's only playing at night, really. It's a very, very interesting industry that's really evolving, and we all have seen a great explosion that's happening all across the world. And in India too. I'm actually very privileged to be able to moderate this session with my three friends here. Let me actually just jump straight into my first question. Tom, I have a question for you. Let me actually start with the very basics, really, Tom. How have you seen this whole mobile usage and the trends around it evolve and grow? And this question specifically, if you could take this question from a pre-COVID and a post-COVID phase, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved your intro there about your teenage son, and I think that's one of the most pervasive stereotypes in gaming is that it's boys playing in bedrooms. And while that's true, probably the frequency of teenage boys playing games in bedrooms is quite high. Actually, gaming is a much bigger mass market opportunity than that. So, I mean, if you look at India, you've got 280 million mobile gamers, most of whom would in no way describe themselves as gamers because they're just having fun playing mobile games. It's not something that they necessarily identify around. It's just a mass reach media channel. But kind of taking it back, I think, to your question around pre-COVID, post-COVID, this opportunity has always been there. Well, I mean, not always. It's been there for a few years now. For many years, you've had that reach against gaming. It has been that kind of true mass market channel. But I think what we've seen with COVID is, kind of a slight increase in usage, maybe an acceleration of a trend that we already saw coming. So, I mean, I think COVID has accelerated a few trends: e-commerce, streaming entertainment, and gaming, the other key ones. So, it's accelerated trends. So we've seen an acceleration of usage, maybe a higher frequency in general of people playing games. But I think the most interesting thing that we've seen is brands really beginning to feel in their gut that the gaming opportunity is a real one, that normal people, quite high net worth, females, kind of all the people who aren't included in that teenage boy stereotype, that they're gaming and they're there available to connect with in the gaming channel. So I think that's been the most interesting thing that we've seen during COVID. So it's been great fun.
It is. It's scary for a parent of a teenager for sure. But I can tell you it's definitely interesting from a marketing world. There is something really big happening there. Itamar, I wanted to kind of get your brains on one of the questions. I know that Anzu is a new platform that's developed for in-house gaming. And this is a new technology. Can you tell us what's unique about it?
Of course. So first, hi everyone, and great to have you here. I'm Itamar, the CEO and the co-founder of Anzu. And basically what we do is in-game advertising. We allow game developers, every game developer in the world, a console game, a PC game, a mobile game, to be able to monetize every game object. So think about a billboard in a game, a poster on a wall, a logo on a shirt. This is exactly how the ad experience would look like. So it's very authentic, it's very native, it makes the game more realistic. But what's nice here is that we brought all the advertising standards to this new ad format. So you can buy you can advertise in a programmatic way. You can have the real-time analytics and viewability and audit. And basically, our vision here is to make gaming a new advertising category. Same that every big brand in the world has a budget and a marketing strategy for social, for search, for out of home. We believe gaming should get this place as a new category, with more than 3 billion people playing at least one game a month, and easily I can argue every brand in the world has an overlap with the gaming audience.
No, thank you very much for that. And let me actually ask you another question on the same platform. What is it that Anzu does that any other game platform doesn't do really? Can you kind of explain that to us a little better?
Of course. So basically, we partner with game developers, and then we allow the game developers to introduce a new way of monetizing in a concept that, number one, is very realistic and authentic, and number two, doesn't block the gamer from playing the game. So for example, let's take an example of a sport game, a cricket game, for example. We can put billboards around the stadium. We can dynamically change the content of the billboard according to who is the person, according to the targeting of the brand. And then we can bring all the confidence to the brand around, is it fully viewable, to make sure that there's no fraud there, to make sure that it's with all the advertising standards he's aware of. So instead of only putting full screen ads and interstitials that are very common in the mobile advertising landscape, basically allowing to monetize maybe 10% of the game session, now we basically allow the game developer to absolutely monetize every part of the game. But more important, to have the gamers to accept this format, because people don't hate ads, people hate bad ads. And more important, to give a format that brands are excited in the way of how they communicate with the gamers. Because the rise of ad blockers, for example, is an example of when advertising is annoying, how the consumers react to it. So we were looking to build an ad marketplace that the gamer, the game developer, and the brand all get excited about it. And basically we partnered with Ad Colony to be our official seller and distributor, to take our technology and to work with all of their global clients to basically partner here and to bring this new capabilities for the first time ever in APAC.
That sounds very exciting, especially in a world where we're all locked down and we're watching a lot more gaming events online. I can see that it's going to be a lot more real with this kind of a technology at play. So thank you for that. MVR, I had a question for you. You come from the whole financial industry and world, really. Can you kind of help us understand how a gaming platform or the audience on a gaming platform can actually be relevant for a financial industry? I know the financial industry itself has lots of challenges, and young audiences are, I'm sure, important for the financial industry. But can you explain to us how a financial industry can actually use a platform, either to use a platform or to target the audience on the platform, really?
Hi, Anusha. So it's very interesting, the question that you asked me, and you spoke about the gambit of the BFSI space. But I want to bring in this answer from the space where I am now, which is mutual fund as an industry. And let me tell you something very interesting, that there are about 4 crore people in our country who invest in mutual funds. And we are a population of 136 crore, which means that as a market, we are still underpenetrated. Of this 4 crore, a lot of it comes from tier 1 towns and metros, which means that a large part of our population, which is also prosperous and is also benefiting with the opening up of the economy and the banking penetration which has happened, is still not a part of the mainstream mutual fund investments. Now, they are not a part of the mainstream mutual fund investments because a lot of it is in English. Now, here is an audience which is a perfect fit when it comes to gaming as an industry, because when you go down to tier 2, tier 3 towns, the way they have adapted to e-commerce, or the way they have adapted to downloading music or watching, video and content online, is all because of the user experience which has been created around those modules. And if we want to get these people to come into mainstream, investments, in this case mutual funds, then gaming has got a very high potential, particularly because gaming can be language agnostic, everything is visual, and it is very easy for the audience to go out and understand. And we will be able to bring in a lot of people. So that's one segment of people that I wanted to sort of highlight to you. The second segment is, of course, the youngsters, the millennials, and the oldest millennial is already 40 now. So the Gen Z is coming in, and they are particularly comfortable with, doing a lot of stuff and learning a lot of stuff using gaming. And then when you go one more level down, which is the kids who are there, which is where a lot of us marketeers want to go out and focus, because then if the children can know a thing or two about investing, then they go and influence their parents, and that can happen through gaming again. So you see, there are about 5 or 6 key nodes in which gaming has got an extremely high role to play. If I were to just include broking, if I were to include banking, I think banking may not need so much of it, because already it's quite well penetrated. But broking is again a segment which is not. And there, there is a great opportunity to use gaming to get people to use newer apps and platforms. Like, for example, when I was with a leading broking company, we had something called as an extreme trader, and we got a lot of people to go out and use the platform because of the gaming module that we went and created. But clearly, where I am now, mutual fund, huge amount of opportunity, largely because it is language agnostic.
That's interesting, India, because a serious industry can use a platform and an audience to be able to drive value for itself, and that's like reassuring for many other categories out there, really. So thank you for that. Tom, I had a question for you again, and I'm trying to understand. I have a son growing at home, so I can still connect to a lot of gaming that happens with boys. Tell us about women. Do women play games as much as we think they should? Are they on gaming platforms? Can marketeers actually reach out to women, or are we only talking to the male audiences here?
Yeah, I mean, that's another really, really interesting question. I think let's be honest, it's 2020, and the idea that girls don't game is a toxic stereotype. It's absolutely not true. So I think if you look at the split of the gaming audience in India, it's around 60% male and somewhere around 40% female. So you've got an addressable audience within gaming of somewhere between 100 and 150 million. So huge, just a mass reach channel where you can get in touch with consumers, and contained, in that audience. We talked about Gen Z, and there's tons of stuff about how gaming, and especially a platform like Anzu's, gives you that opportunity to reach the unreachables, people who are using ad blockers, people who are, used to paying for subscriptions. How do you reach them? That reaching the unreachables, something like the Anzu platform enables you to hit that Gen Z younger audience. But if you look at the mums audience, so if I'm a big FMCG and I'm wanting to reach out to the main, to mums, then mobile gaming is probably where I'm going to find them, and probably within hyper casual apps. And mobile gaming is lovely, easy, fun, snackable content. Or often we see people spending huge sessions within mobile games. So tons, really, really big female audience out there. And it's just just an opportunity to reach whatever demographic, to be honest. Any media channel that reaches 85% of a population is just, you're not going to see a lot of difference in the demographic.
That's very interesting. And, that's very interesting. Seems to break all the stereotypes we have about women and gaming, really. And that's a huge number that you're talking about. So thanks for that. And I'm sure that every marketer will find that information really helpful. Aitma, another question for you. Do you want to just talk about any brand, any marketer who has used this technology and benefited from it. How did they use it and how did they benefit from it? Would love to hear one example of how a marketer used it.
Sure. So, I mean, in general, when we speak with brands, there is, two type of conversations. There is brands that there is a lot of work to do around the gaming education. And this is really getting better over time. 3 years ago, I was hearing a lot from brands about gaming was being seen as like more geeks locked in their basement versus the pop culture gaming is now. And with COVID and sports event being canceled and out of home interaction being minimized, brands were forced to look at digital ways to reach audiences. And so basically, platforms like Netflix and streaming platforms in gaming were basically the two of the best ways to reach them. So there's brands that there's work to do around why gaming, and like on top of the audience, the answer is pretty straightforward. And because of our ad format, we can bring the exact same ad experience of how people interact with brands in the physical world, the exact same formats to apply them into the gaming space. And we see gaming as more than just playing a game. Gaming is becoming a social network. You chat with your friends. This metaverse concept of spending time in a virtual environment. So there's a lot of benefits about why gaming. And then for brands who already get this gaming opportunity or after this education process we do, and basically the way we work with brands is offering them two main things. Number one, ease of use, and number two, confidence about media value. So ease of use comes from the fact that we're connected to all of the SSPs, all of the DSPs, where we have a direct integration with the ad quality platform. So there is no integration needed, 2 clicks of a button, and you can, for the first time, advertise like in the gaming space in this way. So that's number one, why it's easy. And the second way why it's easy, because we use all the standard advertising formats, the same banners and videos brand already have. So there's no even need to create a new creative. These two things make it easy for a brand to work with us. And then the second and more important topic is how do we give a brand confidence about the media value? And this is where we basically brought all the advertising standards for the first time to be able to apply them into the gaming environment. So basically we guarantee marketers only pay for viewable impressions according to IAB and MRC standards. We guarantee brand safety because with most games there is no user-generated content. We guarantee fraud-free with MRC standards. And then because of that tension in gaming, I mean, when you play a game, you're concentrated on the game, there is no really chance for a second screen. Then we can show very strong brand lift impact coming from that. So the combination of these things with the scale and with the opportunity to package our ad format with the other ad colony ad formats, the very known rewarded ad format, and the ability to continue the marketing journey from our platform in the ad colony platform, like makes this like a very appealing a product for marketers. And basically, because it's a quite new product, there is still opportunities to be innovative in the space, to own a category. Think about the first brands in the world who started to advertise on Facebook a decade ago, and the advantage they could take back in the days. So this is how I see the opportunity for brands.
You've actually got me very excited. I know that I'm going to reach out to you for a demo very quickly, but it sounds extremely exciting, and I can see a lot of brands, reaching out to you on the same really. MDR, a question. I know that you have a son, and I remember you telling me that he's a coder. I'm just trying to kind of pick your brains to understand your view on gamers today, their obsession. What do you think it is? And it'll be lovely. I know that Tom and Atama have a point of view on this subject, and they're really close to this platform, so they're seeing gamers. I would love to hear it from your perspective of what you think is really happening in this world today with gamers, their obsession. How much time do you think they're spending on any platform, for example, on any gaming platform? Would love your point of view on that. We can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yes, you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes. So there is an interesting graphic which has come up there, and there is a story behind this graphic, and I want to answer your question in context of the graphic. So when I look at my 12-year-old, he's a musician. He plays about 5 instruments, of which 4 are self-taught, and he plays it quite well. This is not an ad for him, but I'm just bringing in a perspective of how kids are. He also plays 2 games. He is an active tennis player. He's registered with ITA, and he plays football. Now, football is a passion for him. He has been playing this game called as FIFA for a while, on the screen, and all the techniques that he has learned in football has largely come from that game that he has been playing. And interestingly, he has gone on and applied these techniques which he learned on a gaming platform in the real world. Now, the graphic that you see comprises of a group of people where the oldest member of the group is 47, the youngest adult in the group is 38, and there is a 12-year-old kid who has played there. And the game ended as 13-12. The 13th goal was scored by my son. He scored overall 5 goals, and he had 4 assists to do. And all of those compliments, and if you look at the timestamp, they are coming late in the night at about 11:21, and early morning somebody has seen it. It's coming from the kid. And I can tell you that it has really helped him hone his skills in football. And he tries to do both because it helps him be ambidextrous and fancy-feeted when he's doing football and use it in tennis. Likewise, he's also learning it from the game. The other point that I want to tell you is that that unlike perhaps teenagers or younger adults, he's not on the screen all the while. He's quite an outdoor person, but his use of gaming is very purposeful because he wants to dedicatedly give himself a half an hour time or a 1 hour time every morning and evening, or in between breaks, so that he's able to hone his skills. So he's the kind of consumer who uses games for a purpose, and it's not just for entertainment. And the second thing is that he has a great sense of achievement when there are rewards for scaling up to the next level and the next level. So that's how the window is, and it's a very interesting set of people because I think gaming has got a great opportunity to be a medium to reward our kids, to reward a lot of our consumers as they keep going to the next level, apart from being a source of entertainment, which anyway it has sort of demonstrated itself to be.
Yeah, God, MBR, I was just thinking as you were talking, every gamer out there would have loved to have you as their brand ambassador. I know that every gamer must be really negotiating like crazy. I know my son negotiated quite a bit to get the latest Omen HP laptop so he could game better on it. But I'm sure that every gamer would love to have you talk on behalf of him or her now that Tom has told me that there are a lot of gamers, right? So thank you for that. And I'm sure that every gamer out there loves you for what you did today. Tom, a crazy question for you. What is the craziest thing that happened this year in gaming?
Oh my God. I mean, the craziest thing that happened, I think that, it's the craziest thing that is happening, which is, the transformational change that we're seeing being driven by gaming. So I just wanted to pick up on Itamar's point, really, about this huge shift, this once in a generation change that is being driven by gaming. So, I mean, the first iteration of the internet was, really the web. And then social media came along, as Itamar said, 15 years ago, and social media ate the internet, ate the web, and it ate it because everything that was the internet and the web was contained within social media. And that's really, that's what we were talking about. That's what we call Web 2.0. Well, gaming now is at that point of paradigm shift where gaming actually eats social media, because everything that was the web, everything that was social media is now contained within gaming. And we might call that concept the metaverse. We might call it the third iteration of the internet, but it is a huge transformational change. And it's a real opportunity for brands to get involved and level up.
We can't hear you, Tom. Yeah. Something happened. We couldn't hear you the last part.
Oh, okay. Where did you lose me?
Yeah, that this is a huge transformation. We're seeing a big change happening.
Okay. Did I talk about each gaming, eating, everything? Did you just lose me for the very last bit?
Only
I think I was just finishing it off by saying, you know, it's a paradigm shift and it's a huge opportunity for brands to get involved early and, you know, and benefit really from that huge leap.
Yeah, I can almost see that happening. I can see that, Tom. India is a very young country, right? 55% of India is less than 25 years of age. So I can see this happening really well here in India, and
Yeah.
this big eating up. And I like the way you kind of showed us this whole thing. I think that was interesting. Do we have time to take questions? Are we going to take questions from the audience? Do we have time for that?
Anusha, maybe one last comment from my side
Sure.
to continue what Tom said. So, I mean, two really interesting facts. I mean, first, there is this term of digital natives,
Yeah.
people who were born to the digital world, and their perception on gaming and what gaming means from them is very different than older generations. So this is an important factor. As most of the population becomes digital natives, this is going to have another huge impact on gaming, number one. And number two, just to continue Tom's, maybe something crazy about gaming, I think the economics in this metaverse that Tom described, so a platform like a Roblox, where you build your own virtual environment and you spend time in a virtual platform, the economics are crazy. People like those young adults spend money for virtual items in those platforms more than we are used to spend on grocery. And I think this change from a concept perspective of what gaming and what virtual means to those young adults is going to drive in a very important factor for how brands treat gaming moving forward.
Yeah, I can tell you that a lot of brands that I work with are forever talking about this gaming audience. I think you are in a great industry, and I wish you the very, very best on what's going to come up for you, really. I don't think we have time for questions. We're at 1:29, 1:30 right now. But thank you very much. I think this was really enlightening for me, particularly. Thank you very much. We loved having you on the show today.
Thank you, Anusha,
Thank you,
Tom,
Anusha.
and Imar.
Anusha, thank you for managing it so well. Great.
Thank you so much, Anusha, for moderating that wonderful session. And I have to thank Tom, Itamar, and Mr. Murthy for being so kind and enlightening us with the possibilities that the gaming holds for the future. With that, it's time we move on and thank the brands that communicates effectively with massive gaming ecosystem and helps us in seeing a future in a different light. Moving ahead, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Mr. David Raab, founder and CEO of the Customer Data Platform Institute, to come on the stage and give his keynote session, Using Data to Win in a World Without Cookies. Marketing technology expert Mr. David Raab will clarify the challenges faced in replacing cookies, describes the action needed to find effective replacements, and illustrate the key role that customer data will play in these solutions and broader business successes. So with that, I'll hand over the stage and the screen to Mr. Raab.
Good morning. I'm David Raab, founder and CEO of the CDP Institute, and I'm delighted to join you at MMA Impact. I'm sad I can't join you live and in person, but I'm so glad to be here. Today, we're going to talk about using data to win in a world without cookies. But before we do that, let's just talk about why data even matters. Data matters because MarTech runs on data, and marketing today is MarTech. 26% of marketing budgets are spent on technology. More than 8,000, more than actually 10, 12,000 MarTech products are available to choose from. 92% of marketers tell us that CRM and data are important to their business. 98% of marketers tell us that that personalization is important. There's simply no way that you can succeed today as a marketer without mastering MarTech. MarTech, in turn, depends on data. Data comes from consumers, and consumers want privacy. They've made that very clear. The problem is that privacy is shrinking, and this is a problem. Why is this a problem, you may ask? Well, let's talk about that, okay? Privacy is shrinking. Consumer response to that is they worry about it. 64% of global consumers tell us they're concerned about use of personal data, 71% in India, a little less in Asia and Vietnam, but still a vast majority are worried about the data. If they won't share their data with you, your MarTech machine comes to a grinding, crashing halt. The government response is to regulate. That's what governments do. The GDPR passed in 2018, or effective in 2018. The CCPA in the US, effective this year. India, Vietnam, Indonesia all have data protection bills that are in some stage of passage or being worked upon. So it's happening everywhere, including in your markets. The industry response to this concern about privacy has to be to restrict access to data. The browser manufacturers, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, have all been blocking third-party cookies or plan to block third-party cookies. The mobile device makers, Android, Apple, have been blocking access to device IDs. There are more privacy-first alternatives. If you don't want to use Chrome or Firefox, you can use DuckDuckGo. You can use Proton Mail if you don't want to use Gmail. So consumers have the choice to pick privacy-first alternatives. And of course, the walled garden data is the Facebooks and Googles and Amazons of the world. They are offering alternatives because they're blocking access to their data, like data clean rooms or trust tokens, ways for marketers to get at least some access to data without actually violating consumer privacy. The marketer response is to panic. Oh my goodness, they're taking away all my wonderful third-party cookies that have been giving me so much data that I've really built my entire ecosystem around. So we have Facebook actually threatening to shut down their audience network when Apple proposed consent language on the iOS 14 that would have made it very unlikely for consumers to grant access to their data. We have industry groups like the Partnership for Addressable Media in the US opposing privacy law, pushing for federal preemption of state laws like the CCPA, which is a state law, because they assume the federal laws will be a little more lax. And we have things like the World Federation of Advertising, which is an industry group that covers everyone, advertisers and technologists alike, that offers standard for measurement alternatives, again, not using personal data, and honestly, nowhere near as good as what we're used to. So it's no wonder everyone is panicking, but let's calm down, okay? Here's a nice little cute puppy. Look how calm this puppy is. Just sort of be that puppy for a moment. Let's calm down. The world is not going to come to an end. Okay? Advertising existed before cookies. You may not remember it. Some of us do. It will exist after cookies, not the end of the world. In fact, cookies impact just a small and shrinking share of advertising. If you really do the math, about 25% of the marketing budget is spent on media. Only half of that budget is spent on digital media. Less than half of digital media time is actually spent on the browsers where cookies mattered. Less than 20% of your digital budget is actually spent outside the walled gardens. And remember, within the walled gardens, cookies are not the issue. So if you do all that math and you add it all together, less than 1% of your marketing budget is actually impacted by the loss of third-party cookies. So it's just not quite as great a trauma as it sometimes feels. Marketers actually are getting better at getting consent. Okay, this is something we haven't paid much attention to, and we'll talk a little about later. But we can actually get more data from people if we do a better job of asking for it. We simply haven't focused at all on it. And let's face it, marketers were struggling even with cookies. 2/3 of them told us they couldn't fully measure the ROI of their programmatic ad programs. And it's the programmatic ad programs the cookies are impacting. So we still had a hard time. We already were having a hard time. It's not that big a change. Okay. So let's imagine. Let's go ahead and just think about what does life actually look like in a world without cookies? Thinking caps here. Okay. What do we lose when third-party cookies go away? Well, there are two things that are impacted. The first is your programmatic ad targeting, okay? Because what we've been doing so far is we've been buying anonymous individuals based on their behavior. That's how that works. The cookies are tracking anonymous individuals. We may be able to later connect those cookies to real people. In fact, we often can. But at the end of the day, the cookies themselves are inherently not connected to people. So we look at their intent, we look at their behavior, we look at their demographics. Those are the things we know. And that's what we've been targeting our programmatic ads on. And then we can track those same individuals, whether they're known or anonymous, across sites and sessions. That's actually the real power of the third-party cookie, is that you can say, oh, I saw this cookie on this site, now this cookie's on that site. I begin to build a track of that cookie's history, whether or not I know who the person involved with it is. And the other big thing we do with it, we use it for advertising measurement. We can connect the ad views to the post-view behavior, whether it's site visits or purchases or whatever, so we can begin to measure the effectiveness of our ads. And again, the cookies make that possible, even if you don't know who the person is. So there's some stuff that's being lost here. We're not going to say there's nothing going on. On the other hand, there is still plenty that we can do without cookies. First of all, without cookies, we can certainly still do all the media that we were doing before. Okay, remember that half of our budget isn't even spent on web ads anyhow. It's even spent on digital, it's spent on broadcast and such. So we can still do our non-targeted advertising and broadcast and print and out of home. We can still do the targeted advertising that doesn't depend on web ads, like mobile apps, smart TV, digital out of home, streaming devices, other kinds of digital advertising that's targeted but doesn't use cookies to do the targeting. That very much alive and well and actually growing. And we can still target on our own websites where you can use first-party cookies or first-party data, whether it's the website or email or text messaging or Internet of Things devices and increasingly deliver advertising, whatever it is we're going to do. We can still do all that, nothing to do with cookies. None of that goes away. Now, are there issues? Yeah, it's harder to target in some of these media. We don't necessarily have the audience size or coverage for things like mobile apps or smart TV that we were getting on the open web with third-party cookies. And a lot of what we want to do with third-party cookies has been people we don't know acquiring new customers, whereas a lot of these things here that we're talking about really are more aimed at retaining existing customers. Certainly the targeting of owned media only goes to people that you already have some sort of relationship with. So it's more about retention than it is about acquisition. So there are issues, of course. The second thing we'll still be able to do is we'll still be able to send our web ads to unknown audiences. And remember, cookies were anonymous too, but not cookies, we had a pretty decent profile. Here we're talking about things like, I can still send contextual advertising. I may not who's visiting this site about sports news, but I know they're interested in sports news. Or I know they're interested in cooking, or I know they're interested in whatever the topic of the website is. Similarly, I may not know who's within this particular geographic area, which could be a region that's, a city or a state, or it could also be, very specific, who's outside my store at this moment, because all my technology lets me track that and reach out to people in a very specific geo-targeting area, again, without knowing anything about them, except that they're outside the door. I can target to walled gardens. I can still send the ads to the walled gardens guys, again, Facebook, Google, Amazon. They're not going to tell me who the audience is, but they know all the detail because all the wonderful good data that they're collecting is all first party. So they can target very, very accurately, just like we did with the third party cookies, except of course that it is within the walled garden. Similarly, we can still do anonymized analytics. We can't necessarily track individuals, but we can find a lot of information about people at a higher level. Are there issues? Again, yeah, frequency caps is the big one. If I can't track individuals, I don't know that this particular person has been on the site 18 times today. And I don't really want to show them the same ad 18 times. If it was a cookie, I could say, this cookie's been here 3 times, cut them off. I can't do that without some tracking at the individual level. It's harder to get good deals on the impression cost of the inventory because there's less inventory on particular sites if I really want to track with just sports sites, as opposed to reaching the same people when they're on some other site. Again, as with frequency caps, if I can't track individuals, I can't control the message consistency. So if I want to send the same ad to the same person and make a sequence ads to the same person, I can't do that if I don't know who the person is, or if I at least don't know that it's the same person every place. And again, as I said, this does often require reliance on the third-party vendors, on the walled garden vendors, and the walled garden vendors are in it to make money for them, not really to make money for you, regardless of what they might tell you. The third option we have is we can still target our web ads using identifiers other than cookies. There are other identifiers available. Okay, we have certainly the option to target signed-in visitors. That's probably the best thing. Again, at least the publisher knows who they are. If the publisher's willing to share that information with us, then we'll know who they are too, and we can do all the things that we would do with identifiers. There are other passive IDs, passive in the sense that the user doesn't have to consent to share that data, such as IP address, that to some extent let us track individuals across websites. IP address, not totally accurate, but it's an option in some cases. And again, there are privacy safe IDs, such as a hashed email address, where if you do have the email address, that can be shared in a privacy safe fashion by hashing it, which is simply to encrypt it so no one can read what it is, across different sites. So if that same person shows up at multiple sites where all the site owners know their email address, whether they've signed in or whether they've used first-party cookies to identify them, we can then also, as an advertiser, track that same person and recognize them across all those sites, and then do all our great frequency capping and message sequencing and all the fun things that we want to do, as well as our response measurement. Again, we run into some issues here. Again, we have issues of audience size and coverage. Most of these things require some sort of data provision, like an email address or a sign-in by a visitor. Not everyone's going to do that. Tougher to track across channels, even if we have a good web address for people that applies across multiple websites. We still have issues if we want to do things like deal with them in email or out of home or other channels where we might not have that, or even smart devices where we might not have the same identifier. And it's not clear that all of these are going to be allowed in the future. They are raising some of the same privacy issues that have caused people to restrict access to third-party cookies in the first place. So it's quite conceivable that regulators will kind of catch on and say, hey, we told you you can't track people without their consent. You found a clever way to do it, but we're not going to allow that. So again, certainly some options here. Certainly the world does not end. Maybe they're not quite as convenient as what we had with third-party cookies, but they still certainly give us ways to do business. Every one of those post-cookie options needs first-party data. This is an important point, okay? Yes, we can deal without third-party cookies, but the more we deal without third-party cookies, the more we need our first-party data, okay? And here's just a very handy little chart that's way too small for any human being to read that talks about each of those options that we talked about earlier, whether it's the non-targeted or the targeted owned or the contextual advertising, and then which kind of first-party data they rely on. Almost all of them assume we're going to be able to build profiles of individuals so we can understand who they are and target accordingly, or be able to build audiences by combining those individual profiles. And then there's things like personalization and lookalike modeling and other things, all of which rely on our first-party data. So first-party data becomes more and more important in this privacy-driven world. So next question, how do we get better first-party data? How do we get great first-party data? Let's be ambitious here. Okay, well, there are three things we can do. First thing is we can get more profiles on more people, which means we have to give people more reasons to share their data. Remember, the more privacy we offer them, the more likely they are sharing. If we can build trust with better privacy practices, and by promoting our existing practices, because it's not good enough to do it, you have to actually have people believe that you're doing it, know that you're doing it, then they're going to have more trust in us. If we protect their data, and lots of surveys have told us that the most important motivator for people to share their data is that they believe you're going to treat it properly. We can also optimize our consent gathering techniques. All those little click boxes that you've had to accept cookies or not, those have been designed for the most part by lawyers. Lawyers do not really design customer interfaces very well. This is kind of the marketer's job. And we as marketers really have to step into that and take control of that and optimize that to give an experience that encourages people to consent. Doesn't trick them into consent, but encourages them in a positive way to see the advantages of consent and to sign in and give us access to their data. And the more we do that, the more data we have, the better job we'll do with their data and the more reasons they'll have to give it to us because they see the value. Second thing we can do is we can build richer profiles, okay, more data, because we have lots of data, at least about our customers, our known customers, in all kinds of internal systems, not just in the web system itself, but it's sitting there in your email system, it's sitting there in your marketing automation, in your e-commerce platform, in your retail platforms, all the stores that are gathering customer data and customer service system. We can connect all that data together to build richer profiles. Richer profiles, again, let us do better targeting, let us do a better job for our customers. They also give us more leverage to share data with other people, exchange data in second-party data arrangements, which is where two companies decide to exchange their data. The more we have, the more we can negotiate with to work with other people, the better and more attractive partners we are. Similarly, we can do a better use of third-party data, which is simply data we buy. We don't have to exchange it with anyone else. And we can do actually much more than we've been doing with third-party data once we master it. And we can improve our analytics, finally, to add derived variables like predictive model scores or less fancy metrics than that, but things that indicate interest or other kind of metrics that let us do a better job of targeting based on the data that we have, and then possibly using that to build lookalike models to find other people so we can do acquisition as well as retention based on this data. And the third thing that we can do is we can actually do a better job of using the data, activating it. We can do a better job with analytics for segmentation, selecting best offers, and doing personalization messages. There's lots of things that we can do with better analytics to do a better job of dealing with our customers, and again, giving them a better experience, which will encourage them to share their data and, of course, to respond to our ads in the first place. We can orchestrate not just individual experiences, but across the experience. The same customer over time, the same customer across channels. All of our great MarTech gives us a great amount of information, a great amount of capability to do that kind of orchestration. We actually have to do a better job of doing it. Similarly, and finally, we have to integrate with our delivery systems better. Okay, this is the final mile problem. Okay, we have this great analytics, we have this great data, but if we don't use it for something, we don't actually push the messages out and have systems that can take that data and do the personalization, deliver the personalized messages, then we don't get much value. So we have to do a better job of integrating our delivery systems with our customer data. And finally, of course, we have our friend technology. If marketing is marketing today is MarTech. We have our customer data platform, it's my world, that builds those unified profiles, takes all the data from the internal systems and puts it together in one place, makes it available. Again, we have lots of tools for analytics and orchestration and personalization. We can measure 8,000 tools we talked about. Plenty of stuff out there. You have to learn how to use it. You don't want to buy all 8,000. We have to do a better job of privacy management. Again, of both managing privacy and explaining how we're managing privacy. Don't leave it up to the IT department. Don't leave it up to the privacy people, the compliance people. They're wonderful people. Their job is to just keep things really secure, not really necessarily to make the customers happy. And we can share, of course, that data outside of marketing with sales, service, and operational groups, all of whom create great value from, all of them have data they have that they can contribute, and it has to be an exchange even within the company. So final words here. Don't mourn the loss of cookies. Celebrate what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raab, for that insightful session. With this, ladies and gentlemen, it's time we'll move on to the next session for you, but that'll happen in a few minutes from now at exactly 2 o'clock sharp. We'll start with the next session, and we'll be talking about e-commerce, live streaming e-commerce. So make sure that you get back to the platform in a couple of minutes from now. Take a breather, take a deep breath, get some water, and join us back soon. Thank you so very much once again for joining. This is MMA Impact India virtual event, Shape the Future of Modern Marketing. We'll see you in a couple of minutes from now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much once again for giving your valuable time and joining us on this beautiful afternoon. It's time we move on with the next session for the day that we have planned for you. I would like to welcome Miss Bessie Lee from Within Link on stage, please. Now, Miss Lee will speak on one of the hottest trends in the marketing in China, e-commerce 4.0, live streaming e-commerce, and how live streaming is creating new and innovative ways for brands and retailers to connect with consumers. So with this, I'll leave this main screen for Miss Lee out here. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be part of MMA Impact to create impact in India. Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with you the most popular or most in phenomenon in China. It's live streaming e-commerce, and it is considered the e-commerce 4.0. Now, what is live streaming e-commerce? On this slide, you will see three video that I have embedded in this slide. These are the form of live streaming e-commerce. These three, the gentleman on the first video is called Austin Lee, Li Jiaqi. The lady in the second video is called Via. The third gentleman is called Xinba. These three are the three most popular live streaming hosts and hostess in China. So you'll see what Austin Lee is doing is trying the product on him in order to show the consumer how, in this case, lipsticks, what a lipstick looks like, what is the color, and what they will do after they explaining the product is they will pop up the purchase link. And if you like what you're seeing by endorsed by these hosts and hostess, you can just click the buy link that they provided, and you can do instant e-commerce purchase. So in other words, live streaming e-commerce is a super sales plus their mobile handsets, plus the product they have selected to endorse, and also the e-commerce instant transaction platform and payment gateway, so that the e-commerce transaction can happen almost instantly if the consumers like what they're seeing, in this live streaming showroom by these hosts and hostess. So what is the current industry state of the live streaming e-commerce? In China, we have 560 million online live streaming users as of March this year. Now, because of COVID-19, the live streaming e-commerce, the growth of this sector has been accelerated because of the impact of the virus. Market scale in value, in 2019, the sales generated, which is the market scale, the sales generated by the live streaming e-commerce back in 2019 was $65 billion US, and that was roughly about 1% of the total China retail. We believe that number is going to hit 130 billion by the end of this year. Now, live streaming is nothing new. Live streaming started as early as 15 years ago in 2005. That was the PC stage, and it was happening in a lot of the chat room. And when there's live concert, the live concert will pop up on online video, or TV station. So that was the beginning of the live streaming industry in China. Now, and 2.0 of live streaming took place between 2012 to 2014. It was still the PC stage or PC age, but this is when the gaming live streaming started to gain traction. So we know this is when the esports started in China. In 2015, 5 years ago, live streaming started entering the mobile age. And then we started to see entertainment being live streamed, and we also started to see long tail content curation also being live streamed on mobile. So the consumers are very used to using a very small mobile handsets, and we have long history by now, about 10 years of content creation, content curation, among consumers. So it's only natural when in 2017, all these people who are curating content decided that if I can curate content, I can certainly curate content selling products on mobile. So that marked the first year of the live streaming e-commerce in China. So this started about 3 years ago. Now, if you look at any commerce to be successful, or just to be possible, you need consumer, or you need people, you need distribution channel, and you need merchandise. So this, this makes sense way before the e-commerce age. This is happening in the retail age as well. But for live streaming e-commerce, you need these three happening all online. So people, we're talking to more than just consumers. We're talking about also influencers and curators. They are curating a lot of content, and some of those contents are about endorsing product, introducing products, selling products. So that falls under the people sector. Then the distribution channel, live streaming e-commerce, it's e-commerce. So the e-commerce channel has to be mature enough. So if we look at China, we now have close to 1.3 billion 4G users. That's almost like every Chinese consumers has access to 4G. So it's critical to have this 4G connectivity because the experience will be seamless. You won't get sort of stuck because of the slow speed of the connection. And we have 710 million e-commerce users, which means e-commerce is already a standard. We can't imagine at the moment that any product that doesn't have an e-commerce store or doesn't have an e-commerce shopping channel available for the consumers in China to choose from or to buy. And like I said earlier, we just like live streaming users alone, we have 560 million. And at the moment, just to show how mature e-commerce channel is in China, it is now about a quarter of total retail that's taking place in China. So that's how vibrant and dynamic that distribution channel or e-distribution channels in China is like today. Now, merchandise, we just on Taobao and Tmall platform alone, we have more than 10 million stores, and and not just Alibaba's e-commerce platform. We still have at least 50 other e-commerce channels or e-commerce platforms. They're selling all sorts of products every day to the consumers. And also China is very famous for having a very large manufacturing industry. So we have very mature and quick turnaround production lines that can churn up products very quickly in order to satisfy consumers' need. Live streaming hub and plus merchandise warehouse, we have a lot of companies that will be taking up, say, the entire buildings in, say, a second-tier city, and they will convert the whole building into a lot of very small live streaming studios inside the building. And at the bottom of the building or at the basement of the building, a lot of times will be either a supermarket or a merchandise warehouse. So people or live streamers can just arrive at the building, go to the product or merchandise warehouse, pick the product that they would like to sell today, check themselves into the live streaming studio, set up their phone, take it away and start selling and endorsing the product. So that's what how merchandise is made. Not just we have mountains and mountains of merchandise, but we also have this whole infrastructure to help people who can sell, to help people who create content to sell products, make their life very easy to just pick a product, go and sell to their users via their mobile phone. So these three very mature sectors are coming together very nicely in China to create this live streaming e-commerce phenomenon in our market. Some of the fundamentals that you will need or see happening that make live streaming e-commerce possible. The first one, like I said, you need a mature technology, connectivity technology. So high-speed Wi-Fi, 4G, or like right now, China, we're migrating into a 5G technology. So to have that technology, it ensure a very smooth user experience. You need mature e-commerce backend and payment gateway. So when consumers like what they've seen on these live streaming e-commerce time slot, they want it there, they want it now, so they can just a click away purchase those products, and the delivery will be arranged the very next day. You need a lot of brands who are willing and brave to experiment the new, but you also need consumers who are willing to embrace the new. So they're willing, or allowing brands to try these live streaming e-commerce to sell product to them in a new way. So it's all fun and it's all, very exciting about live streaming e-commerce. But we also have challenges that face live streaming e-commerce. The first one is, if you're consumers in China, you are bombarded by mountains and mountains of products every day. How do consumers discover new products? Well, how do they discover their new variant introduced by a brand that they know from before, or they used before? They can certainly go and do search themselves, but we have information overflow or overload. So these live streaming e-commerce today are being used by the consumers as a product screening or product shopping guide, if you like, by these supercells and hostess. And they have built a trusted relationship between, with their fans by these supercells. So a lot of consumers, have a trusted enough relationship with these supercells. They will check into their live streaming e-commerce time slot every night just to see, what are some of the new products that they've never heard before, or what are some of the new variants by the products they have used from before, from the past, or if there are any special discounts they're offered today because of the supercells. So the supercells at the moment, like Li Jiaqi, Austin Lee, or Wei Ya, or Xinba, their time slides will happen roughly about between 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock almost every night during the week. So those 2 hours are now the new prime time. The consumers will go to those their live streaming e-commerce time slot just to see new products, just to see or enjoy the discount. This live streaming e-commerce also have created an even shorter path to purchase for the consumers. Like I said, in my first chart, when I show you those video, when these supercells endorse the product, once they finish endorsing a product, per product is about 2 to 3 minutes, there will be a purchase link popping up on the screen. So if I like the product, I can just click the link, make my purchase, and just wait for the delivery to be arranged the very next days. So the challenge to brand is that means you have that 2 to 3 minutes to convert, or for the sales to convert sales for you. So can you provide exciting enough information for these sales to tell a good story, to tell an interesting sales stories about these products of yours? And can you, or are you willing to provide, discount for these sales to accelerate the sales for you? So that, the digital age these days, path to purchase is already a lot shorter than the traditional age. These live streaming e-commerce, the path to purchase is even shorter than the digital, the digital age of path to purchase that we're talking about. Now, a lot of the brands in China, they really like this e-commerce, live streaming e-commerce, and they wanted to use celebrity. When I say celebrity, I mean show business celebrity. That may not work, oftentimes, because these are show business celebrity. They don't equal sales. They don't necessarily know how to sell. They might be very good at acting. They might be great at singing, but they probably don't have the skill sets that required to sell the product. In this photo I'm showing you, this lady on the left-hand side, she is a very popular show business celebrity. And her team believe that because of her fame and popularity, if they put her in front of the camera and prepare a list of products and information for her to sell, they were very sure that she's able to convert, millions and millions of sales that night. So they arrange a 5-hour time slots for her. And she, of course, very happily to enter or arrive at this live streaming studio that's set up for her. But very quickly, about 2 hours into this 5 hours live streaming e-commerce, she realized that she didn't know, she didn't have what it takes to become or to be like these live streaming e-commerce supercells. She started hating it. She started showing emotional response to this whole setup. She didn't want to collaborate with this assistant salesperson next to her, and she threw a tantrum. And it turned out to be a disaster for these many brands who pay her the money for the endorsement. So you got to be very careful using celebrity. Check them out and see whether they have what it takes to be a salesperson for your product. And you might have very high advertising to sales ratio if you want to use a super popular a salesperson like Austin Lee. I want to take a real example just to show you how high the advertising to sales ratio is. BV is a luxury lady handbag or luxury handbags brand. They have booked a time slot with Austin Lee on August 21st to do live streaming e-commerce sales for them on Tmall. So they have provided 230 BV cloud bag mini, and each mini bag cost about roughly US dollars $1,800. This 230 BV bags sold out in less than a minute. So the total sales generated by Austin Lee in this time slot was roughly about 420,000 US dollars. Cost to BV. If you want to hire Austin Lee to endorse your product, there's a one-off endorsement fee that you have to pay, which is about 45,000 US dollars. Then you also, on top of that, you have to pay 20% sales commission to Austin Lee. In this case, is roughly about 85,000 US dollars. So the total advertising or marketing to sales ratio for BV of this live streaming e-commerce slot was roughly about 30%. This is very high compared to the 5 to 15% benchmark that we know, that we're very used to. So it's a very high price, at least in terms of percentage-wise, that you have to pay. And this is a luxury product. So if you can imagine how high that percentage is going to be if this is a fast-moving consumer product at a much lower price range. However, even though the advertising to sales ratio tend to be much higher if you want to use Austin Lee or Via, but you do have that much longer term of sort of benefit that you can max out if you know how to use it. In Austin Lee and Via's case, 6 months after they have done the live streaming e-commerce slot for you, you can, in all your marketing material, carry a sentence that says, this product is endorsed by Austin Lee or endorsed by Via. So that's 6 months of this, carrying this sentences in the material actually gives the consumer some sort of certification, if you like, that this product is certified by Austin Lee or Via, and therefore they're happy to endorse it. So you do have that long term to compensate that advertising to very high advertising to sales ratio in that live streaming e-commerce slot. Very bad news to the agency, because the clients will have to find money to fund these supercells live streaming e-commerce slot. So I have checked in with a lot of clients who've done so. Where do they get the money? How do they move the money around in order to fund the supercells live streaming e-commerce? Normally, 2 pockets. The first pocket that the money that will move is from the current e-commerce operating budget. The second is from the regular advertising budget. So that's why I said it's not such a good news to advertising agency. And I believe that live streaming e-commerce is going to come to your market if it is not already there. So if you're an agency, study the phenomenon in China, brace yourself, get yourself ready, so that you can either protect the budget or gain or retain or gain budget by developing new skill sets around the live streaming e-commerce. What's the future of live streaming e-commerce? At the moment, live streaming e-commerce in China is a 1.0 stage, which means it's all about cheap price, it's all about discount, and then it relies so much on the personality of the super sales. We believe such subject matter experts are going to enter this live streaming e-commerce industry and start selling the products based on their expertise. TV stations do have experience from TV channel age, right? And they have beautiful studios set up, and they have high quality filming equipment. So definitely they're able to put together, in terms of quality and visual experience, a much better live streaming e-commerce experience than this, the small mobile phone experience. So we're just waiting to see when TV station is going to enter this market. Advertising men and women, we are very good at telling compelling stories. So to sell product, it not necessarily relying on cheap price. You and I know. So we are very confident that we can sell product by telling compelling stories. So we believe that advertising men and women are going to enter this market and do a very different and very exciting and very fun live streaming e-commerce. VR and AR, watch this space, especially AR. I think very soon you're going to see AR avatar popping up on the screen to sell product and endorse product for brands and endorse the product to you. Now, video selling is not necessarily limited to only e-commerce. You can also embed video sellings in your product, especially complicated home appliances. So again, use your phone to scan the part of that product, and up popping in your phone, using AR technology, a tutorial video that explain how this product works. So video selling can go beyond just e-commerce. So we believe that these are the next stage, or the future of live streaming e-commerce. Desperate times call for desperate measures. COVID-19 is a big hit, especially to the travel industry. So live streaming e-commerce is not limited to just selling fast-moving consumer products. So let's see how the world's largest travel retail, Ctrips co-founder James Liang, used live streaming to rescue his business from the COVID-19 hit.
直播带货的热潮让疫情笼罩下的消费市场逐渐升温，但伴随着国内各地大小城市封城，国内外签证放缓，使得整个旅游行业处在全线停摆状态。携程作为国内旅游业的领头大哥，在完成春节12亿元的退票赔付后，也面临着巨大的生存压力。 扮过苗王，穿过古装，演过川剧变脸，也说过相声贯口，甚至在河南场的直播里剃了光头。13场直播，超4亿元消费，这些数据无疑是对梁建章豁出去的最大安慰。然而，直播镜头背后，梁建章对这一切似乎有不同的理解。
首先，也不能夸大直播的这个作用。最近这段时间，这个对公司的压力还是非常大的。 直播只是我们光鲜快乐的一面，大家还有很大的压力，非常大的一面，可能大家都看不到。就这段时间，我们的业绩受到影响，我们的成本还是非常高，然后我们又有很多资金方面的一些压力，包括垫款啊，航空公司有些我们合作伙伴倒闭了以后，我们就有坏账的这个风险，还有服务方面巨大的压力，这些其实大家都可能看不到的。
危急关头，方能彰显企业家的能力所在。曾有媒体 将这次直播行为评价为梁建章第3次从至暗时刻挽救携程。
你那些朋友怎么跟你反馈的？
第一感觉肯定跟你一样了，觉得哎呦，这携程肯定很惨嘛，这个老板就这么辛苦，这么豁出去了去做这个事情啊。但确实也没错啊，我们是很惨啊，当然我们不是最惨了，我们这个整个行业我们的同行其实挺惨，我们还相对好一些，因为我们资金还有一定的积累，
底子还比较厚。
我们的这个同行、酒店啊、景点啊，就真的是很惨。 但我觉得旅游本身是个比较快乐的，就在这种惨的情况下介绍这些旅游产品的话，还是蛮快乐的。
像一棵海草，海草，海草，海草，随波飘摇，海草，海草，海草，海草，浪花里舞。那些看看左看左看，乘雨又乘风，高低高低，远近远近，不同各不同。路上不是人面目，却生在自山中。路上不是人面目，酒店都写成。
其实我觉得那就是你心里是不是住着一个外向的你？现在直播给你个机会释放出来。
这个我觉得每个人都差不多啊，都有一个叫什么童心。
So what you just seen was James Liang. The video that he was doing all this dance was in front of a hotel in a leisure destination that sells rooms on Sea Trip. So he traveled there, put on this Chinese costume, and did this dance to sort of celebrate or introduce the studio, the hotel. So it's a co-founder of Sea Trip. He's willing to try different ways of selling their product. So I won't be surprised if I see Ashutosh doing live streaming, selling Group X product very soon in your market. So I hope my sharing has given you a very basic flavor of this, live streaming, e-commerce phenomenon that's getting very popular now in China. And I believe that live streaming e-commerce is going to come to your market if it is not already there. So brace yourself and enjoy and have fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Bessie. It was an entertaining session, to say the least. I really enjoyed the part where you talked about how brands can look at adding the live streaming to their retail strategy. So thank you so very much once again for joining in. Ladies and gentlemen, yet another fabulous session coming your way, which is being enabled by the MMA Voice and Audio Council. As MMA recognizes the power and potential of voice for marketers to shed more light on the landscape and council's vision, it gives me immense pleasure to invite on stage Mr. Samshuddin Jasani, Group MD, Isobar, South Asia, Isobar, India, to share more about it. Over to you, Mr. Jasani.
Hi, welcome all to a very exciting part of MMA Impact 2020. This session is going to be about voice, and as MMA and as MMA's Voice and Audio Council, we are very excited and we want to bring forward a new chapter, a new revolution, which I think is going to be critical in the future of not only advertising, but also in the future of India as a whole, which is voice as a platform. And I think voice as a platform is going to shape up and change a lot of things as we step into 2021 and beyond. The purpose of this council is to demystify what voice is all about. It is to educate you, the marketers, you, the platform players, you, the agencies, about how to use the various ways of how voice is really exploding and how to take advantage of that, and how voice is not only changing how you reach out to consumers, how consumers or how users interact with each other, but more importantly, how it's going to change everything around us and how us as human beings are going to start using voice to change our behavior. And that's really critical from a consumer first marketing and a consumer first business perspective. And the idea of this voice council and what we are going to do in the next 2 days, as well as going further in the next couple of years, is to highlight that. So the vision of what the voice council is going to talk about, and the voice and audio council is going to talk about, is how can we bring that to you? How can we have various sessions, various master classes of bringing in the best work that's happening on it, to bring on great platform players who are bringing in newer ways of really taking advantage of the voice platform, connecting the new age companies who are developing brilliant solutions on voice. Because at the end of the day, the vision is that from 2 years to 3 years down the line, when voice becomes a very integral part of consumer behavior, how they interact with their surroundings, how they do research, how they do consume content, um, how a 5-year-old like my son, who now belongs to the voice generation more than the mobile generation as such, is going to drive the changes of the future. And I think that's very critical for us as MMA to start evangelizing that. And I think that's where I think 2021 and beyond we're going to concentrate on. It's a very exciting phase in India. India is a very unique market as far as voice goes. Globally, the market is more leaning towards non-mobile instruments. I think when you're talking about smart speakers, smart technology beyond mobile is where most of the technology is enhanced and most of the usage is. But India is still a mobile first market, which means that the growth of voice is predominantly going to be through mobile. The other thing that voice kind of breaks is the whole language barrier, the whole literacy barrier. Once the kind of technology which transcends language, going from English and beyond Hindi into vernacular languages, as well as you don't need to be able to be literate to use voice. I think that means that you're going to unlock the potential of 1.3 billion people in India. Uh, you know, Taking that into consideration, we truly believe that voice is going to be a game changer. It's going to be something which both for marketers as well as businesses is going to be critical. And now is the time to really start your journey on voice and really take advantage of what's going to come, the wave that's going to come 2 to 3 years down the line. So I think that's really the focus. The focus of the Voice and Audio Council is to bring that to you and to make sure that we are continuously evolving the market. We're continuously giving newer ways and newer direction of how voice really will be a critical component of going into 2020. And so that's really the focus. And you will see through the masterclass today the examples that will be in front of you, and as well as tomorrow, of how we are going to bring this alive. This is just a start, and there is so much more to do, but I think it's a very, very exciting and a very challenging future, which I think is going to bring such amazing results for us. So I think best of luck, and thank you for joining us today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much, Mr. Jasani, for that insightful session and, of course, sharing your perspective. With this, it's time we learn some art and science of creating compelling branded interactions for Google Assistant, both globally and locally. We have Mr. Wally Brill, Head of Conversational Design and Education, and along with him, Arpita Kumar, Creative Lead at Google Assistant's Personality from Google's Assistant team. Ladies and gentlemen, your masterclass.
Hi, my name is Arpita Kumar, and I'm from the Google Assistant's Personality team.
And I'm Wally Brill from the Conversation Design team at Google.
Today, we want to tell you about how you can extend your brand through voice interfaces like the Google Assistant. Millions of people use smart speakers and digital assistants every day. For brands, they're an exciting new channel to reach customers and interact with them in ways they've never had before. Interactive entertainment, shopping, games, education, and even customer service are available through a whole universe of connected devices. But when we interact with a brand through these new channels, how does the brand differentiate itself from its competition? That's what we want to show you today.
First of all, let's talk about conversation. Scientists have long believed that we've been talking to one another for about 150,000 years. That's quite a long time. But recent remains of an ancestor of both Neanderthal and Homo sapiens indicates that we may have been conversing a lot longer than that. Anthropologists have discovered that this distant ancestor had what's called a hyoid bone in their throat. The hyoid bone is attached to the base of the tongue and allows us to shape sounds and form words. So now revised estimates indicate that we may have been talking for over 350,000 years. Now, during that time, we've developed conventions of conversation that we all follow. We learn them before we can walk. They're like the rules of the road. For example, the cooperative principle. The cooperative principle was conceived by Paul Grice, a philosopher and linguist who determined that in any conversation, each participant wants to help move the conversation forward and to make the interaction successful. What this all means is that we have shared knowledge on how to converse, making it easy to have a conversation even with a total stranger. So it only makes sense that we would leverage all of these conventions when we design conversations with robots. The more natural a conversation is, the more people understand how to participate. So we're teaching robots to speak human, not the other way around. Okay, so we know we want the conversation to be natural, but we also need it to differentiate the brand or we miss a valuable opportunity. Just like TV, radio, internet, social, print, and outdoor, the interactive voice system like the Google Assistant is another touch point and channel for communicating with customers. It's an opportunity for brand extension that shouldn't be missed, but exactly how do we do it? The answer is persona. So what's a persona? Well, the dictionary defines persona as the face you show to the world. It's the impression people have when they meet you. It's the who of who you are. In theater or TV, it's a character. Everybody has a persona. It's what differentiates us and separates us one from another. It's what makes us individuals. But it's not just a voice anymore. In a world of devices with screens, the persona is expressed through audio, sound design, visual content, interaction design, and even typography. Okay, so why is this important and why should we care? Well, Clifford Nass and Scott Brave at Stanford did a lot of research into how we interact with computers. They discovered that within a second or two of hearing any voice, we automatically and unconsciously assign a personality to it, good or bad. We can't help it. In the voice, we can detect age, gender, level of education, register or the social status of the entity, and of course, if they have a discernible accent, we get a sense of locale, all within that first 1 or 2 seconds. But we go on to make inferences about intelligence, trustworthiness, and likability. So it's vital that when we design a branded experience, we create exactly the right persona for it. As my colleague James Jangola says, if you don't design the persona, the listener will do it for you. And now more than ever, the experience is the brand, so it's essential that we get it right. Now, to indicate just how powerful persona can be in differentiating brands, we've created 2 airlines that don't exist. On the left, you can see important airlines. They're like a national flag carrier. Their strapline is, "We're important and we will get you there." Very traditional. On the other hand, there's millennial airlines who say it's an awesome day to fly. A very different kind of brand serving a very different audience. Now, in the case of important airlines, which caters to business travelers, the brand is conservative, solid, confident, expert, reliable, straightforward, and safe. Just what you might expect from a traditional flag carrier. Once again, millennial is very different. They're looking to reinvent travel. Their brand is bold, hip, fun, friendly, exciting, and delightful. A whole new way to fly. Next, it's time to learn about the customers themselves. We want to understand the demographics and the customer journey, look at the frequency of engagement and their needs and expectations. As I mentioned, the important airlines customers are generally mid-30s and up, business travelers, frequent flyers, high-value road warriors. The millennial customers are very different. First of all, they're much younger, late teens to mid-30s. They're holiday makers, backpackers, perhaps taking a surfing holiday in Thailand, or young families taking the kids to Disney World once a year. So infrequent users. Now we need to pick a task or use case. What are we solving for? It's all about making something that's useful, usable, sometimes entertaining, and definitely easier than the alternatives. Our colleague Jared Straudeman talks about how the benefits of voice interactions are speed, simplicity, and ubiquity. Speed, because I don't have to take my phone out of my pocket to get an answer if there's a smart speaker in the room. Simplicity, because what could take 8 or 10 taps on the smartphone can be one spoken question like, "Hey Google, what's 15 times 24? And when I want something done, I can just say it. "Hey Google, turn on the living room light." And as for ubiquity, the Google Assistant is on 1 billion devices worldwide. For the purpose of this exercise, we've chosen flight information, or FLIFO, for our task. Is my flight on time? Has it been delayed? Has it been canceled? Remember, when you pick a use case, ask these 4 questions. 1, is this something people can do in conversation now? 2, could you do it with minimal to and fro? 3, would using it be faster and easier than the alternative or provide delight? And 4, can it be done with eyes and hands busy? If you answered yes to most of those, you might just have a great use case. Okay, now here comes the fun part. This is where we create characters that might be a good fit for the brand and the task. For important airlines, we decided to model the persona on a traditional English butler, and we named him Terrence Butler. Looking back, the important airlines brand is conservative, solid, confident, expert, reliable, straightforward, and safe. So Terrence might be a good fit. Let's hear what he would sound like if he were doing the job of providing flight information.
Okay, Google. Talk to important airlines.
Getting important airlines.
Good morning. You're through to Important Airlines. Am I speaking with Wally?
That's right.
Thank you. And do you require information regarding your flight to London today?
Yes.
Notice 2 things. He says, "You're through to Important Airlines," and then he says, "Do you require information regarding your flight to London today?" That's very formal language, even a little old-fashioned and very traditional, but a good fit for the conservative, important brand. Okay, so what about millennial airlines? What kind of character would you expect to represent their brand? Meet Helen Highwater. Helen is a gate agent at San Francisco International Airport. She's 26 years old, super stylish, kind of a hipster. Now remember, millennial is bold, hip, fun, friendly, exciting, and delightful. So Helen might be a good fit. Now what would she sound like giving flight information?
Okay, Google. Talk to millennial airlines.
Getting millennial airlines.
Millennial Airlines. It's an awesome day to fly. Is this Wally?
Yep,
Great. Do you want info about your flight to London today?
that's right.
Notice those same 2 spots. Instead of "You're through to Important Airlines," Helen says, "Millennial Airlines. It's an awesome day to fly." And instead of "Do you require information regarding," she says, "Hey, do you want info about your flight?" Very casual, very informal. So there you are. The persona that represents the brand is like any other touch point. It needs to be a designed experience that isn't left to chance. Okay, so you've created a persona, picked a use case, and designed the interaction. What's next? Well, it's not exactly like "If you build it, they will come." When you launch an interaction, you need to ensure that people know about it and know how to get to it. So that brings up the invocation. That's what people say to the assistant to get to your action. Okay, Google, talk to millennial airlines. That's very simple and straightforward, right? But what if I'm a frequent user and I know that the Millennial Airlines action can do a number of things? I could say, okay, Google, talk to Millennial Airlines about confirming my flight. That would deep link directly into the part of the action I'm specifically looking for. It makes it much more usable. What we don't want to do is make the invocation overly complex. Ideally, it'll be closely related to function. Talk to Galactic Foods Recipe Wizard. That'll obviously get you cooking tips. Or talk to Bus Route to find out when the next bus is due. Finally, after all that, with the action launched, how do you drive traffic? Well, this is where we need to draw on traditional marketing channels. The call to action should be prominent in advertising, on packaging, and basically anywhere the brand is visible. That's the primary way to inform customers and get them to try it out. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, for people to want to use it repeatedly, it needs to create significantly less friction than the alternative ways of achieving the tasks, or in the case of games and entertainment, provide delight that brings the user back. So that's a global perspective, but how do you make persona relevant in a local market like India, for example? Let's ask Arpita.
Thanks, Wally. Designing a persona for an international brand that spans across many locales is both a fun and a tricky challenge. No matter which locale I'm designing for, I always keep these three things in mind. Is the persona culturally relevant? Are the dialogues linguistically accurate? And does it delight the user in that part of the world? We can call this process of making a persona relevant for a particular part of the world internationalization. And internationalization has to be done right because it's integral for accessibility and product inclusion. Voice has been a great tool for making the Google Assistant accessible to many mobile phone users in India. When we were designing the Google Assistant in the 10 Indic languages, we kept this in mind, that these dialogues of the Google Assistant will be heard rather than seen. So we kept our writing short and we structured it in a way that it would work for the TTS and all the technical limitations that we had. We added sound effects and pauses, and that would enhance the messaging. And wherever possible, we didn't shy away from throwing in a shayari or two or doing some fun rhyme work, and that made the dialogues really memorable and fun for the user. Now, keeping the linguistic diversity of India in mind, we made sure that each Indic locale had a persona that spoke in a way that was natural for that region. For example, even though in Hindi and Urdu, we went with the formal you or aap to address the user, for Marathi, we decided to go with the informal you. These pronoun choices and formality levels made the assistant sound familiar and yet respectful to the users in that region. For the Indian English personality of the Google Assistant, we made sure that we didn't pepper it with too many English words because people from all over India use it and might not know English. Let me share some of the key strategies we have used with the Google Assistant. And for that, it is really important for us to know the difference between localization and transcreation. Localization is the translation of content from one language to another. Let us look at an example. In American English, the query, "What is your favorite color?" is spelled the American way with no U in favorite or color. If we were to localize this for India, the spellings will change from American English to British English, but rest of the sentence remains intact. Transcreation is much more involved. A successfully transcreated message evokes the same emotions and carries the same implications in the target language as it does in the source language. However, absolute fidelity to a text is secondary here. So we're taking a concept in one language and completely recreating it in another. Let us look at an example. The ENUS response for the query, "Where do you live?" is pretty straightforward. I live in the cloud, but you can find me in all kinds of devices: phones, Google Homes, and smart displays. However, the way we transcreated this response in India for Indian English was to highlight how directions are not so straightforward in India. The Indian English assistant says, "So turn left from the Panwala and then go straight till you see a banyan tree." Just kidding, I live in the cloud. The Indian English response highlights how we use landmarks to give directions in India that are often quite detailed and maybe a little convoluted. As you can see, there wasn't really fidelity to the original text, but we did share where the assistant lives, though with a desi flavor. Another strategy is examining the personality traits based on the locale. The assistant has many traits, but we look at friendliness here. What is considered friendly in one part of the world might be considered rude in another. So cultural sensitivity has to be kept in mind while calibrating the friendliness trait for an internationalized assistant. Let me give you an example. When I ask the American Google Assistant, "How are you doing?" the response is very enthusiastic. The assistant responds by saying, "I'm great. Hope you're having a terrific day. How can I help?" Such enthusiasm is very characteristic of the US, but might be too much for some parts of the world. In Hindi, the response is more tongue-in-cheek. When the Hindi assistant is asked, "Aap kaisi hain?" she responds by saying, "Chal rahi hai gaadi. Kya main kuch madad kar sakti hu?" In both instances, the persona is relatable to the user because it behaves in a way that is natural and culturally relevant to that part of the world. The formality level, the use of pronouns, the tone are all carefully calibrated to make the user feel comfortable while using the assistant. Finally, one of the things I'll be very careful when crafting a female-sounding assistant is to not play into the stereotype of the coy, subservient assistant that flirts with the user. In fact, staying away from any kind of stereotype is key. Okay, I hope these strategies prove helpful to you. फिर मिलते हैं.
So that's it. Just remember to leverage the conventions of human-to-human conversation to design the interaction, pick a use case that's going to be engaging and repeatedly useful, design a persona to extend the brand and ensure that people know about the action and can easily invoke it. Okay, thanks for watching. Now go and make something amazing. So some folks have sent in some questions, and let's try and answer some of them. First of all, how should brands get started on Assistant? Well, it's a great question. I think, as I mentioned before, the use case is key. You've got to have a great use case, something that people will want to do repeatedly, something that adds value. You can place an order for your usual at Starbucks, for example. I would really suggest not necessarily expecting to sell. I would expect to perhaps do something that lends credibility to the brand, adds to the brand. Zyrtec, company that makes antihistamines in the United States, created an assistant action that told you what the air quality was wherever you happened to be. It was very clever, but it didn't actually sell Zyrtec. It just said, here's the pollen count, here are the sort of kinds of pollen that may be bothering you today, and here's what you can do about it. So great use case, very clear, very simple, very effective, something people can already do in conversation, something that doesn't require a ton of to and fro. What else? Something that people will want to do repeatedly and that takes friction out of a task that they already have, perhaps. Here's one. Can we build an entire user journey with voice? Absolutely, and we would recommend it. Start with the greeting and end with resolution of the task. So, how do we get there? Well, you saw in the examples I showed what we called a sample dialogue. A sample dialogue is basically like a play between two characters, a user and a computer, or in this case, the assistant. And what we do is we write the conversation as a play. Now, there are obviously some use cases like booking travel where it's going to be really helpful to have a screen and to be able to select things from a screen. But we certainly recommend starting with a voice-first interaction and completing the task as much as you possibly can in voice alone. Okay, what are 3 things one should not do? okay, don't draw flowcharts and add language. It doesn't work that way. We're trying to create a conversational interface, and that means conversation. So what we would suggest you do is actually have the conversation. So as you saw in the examples I showed, what would a conversation be like when you're trying to get flight information? So have that conversation with someone, record it, and see what it sounds like. That's a natural way of doing what you're trying to do. Write that conversation down, repair anything that isn't quite right, and then create your flowcharts. That's number one. Number two, don't forget to promote the action. You need to make it clear to an audience where they can find this, how they can get to your action through the assistant. They need to know the invocation. So on all of your packaging, anywhere the brand is seen, there should be somewhere something that says, now you can say, hey, Google for blah, 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 right? And number three of things you should not do, never lie to your mother. It really doesn't work out well. Okay, next question. Can my brand have a different persona than others on the assistant? Absolutely, and I hope you got that from my my talk earlier and from Arpita's talk. It's really about crafting that personality, designing what you think would be the best match for your brand attributes and expressing your brand attributes through the interface, through that persona. Okay, thanks very much for joining us. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Brill and Arpita, of course, for this amazing masterclass, Build for Voice. Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Raman Thiagarajan, CEO, Agra Technologies and Avaz.com on the stage, please. Mr. Thiagarajan, all yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Raman. I'm co-founder and CEO of Agra Technologies. Great to be at Impact 2020. It's great what Walter and Arpita said about voice and building conversational interfaces. It's really phenomenal. And as the theme for Impact suggests, shaping the future of modern marketing, I think voice is an integral part of it. And much has been spoken about voice, video, and vernacular, but here we are talking about voice. I'm very happy to share some India perspective today so you could make informed decisions. Firstly, IDC data indicates that India is the fastest growing smart speaker, smart devices market in the whole world. The growth has been 78% year on year as of 2019, and the trend is only continuing to grow. India is mobile first. So even if the smart speaker like Google Home, Alexa, Echo devices are growing, India is still mobile first, and that presents a huge opportunity for all of us to build conversational experiences. We have more than 300 million smartphones, and it's Android first, and Google Assistant comes preloaded on every Android device. Just long press the home button and you're good to go. Even Alexa works on mobile, Siri works on mobile. So when you're talking about voice in India, it is mobile first. There are 100 million Geo phones or the Kai OS phones, which doesn't have touch. They have voice in it. The largest button on the Geo phones, the 1,500 rupees device, is voice once again. So that makes it a lot more inclusive. Globally, there are more than 1 billion devices with Google Assistant. This includes car, refrigerators, white goods, appliances, and more. So it's an incredible opportunity for us to be considering what your brand could do on voice. Google Assistant is available in 9 Indian languages, and Alexa is available in Hindi and English. You could speak to it interchangeably, and that creates another huge opportunity because we can cover a wide range of geographies in the country. What does voice mean for brand? A couple of things. Marketers go where their audience are, and people have already started using voice, so user adoption is taken care of. Voice lets you build AI-enabled interactive conversational dialogues with your consumers in a real-time basis, and voice assistants understand intent behind what your audience are saying, and it could have a meaningful conversation with them. Brands could also occupy 100% share of voice because it's a nascent space. And no matter what category you are in, let's say you're a detergent, you could own the entire stain as a category. Let's say you're a food brand, you could own recipes, whether it's very niche or gourmet or very mass or Indian recipes. Or if you're an automaker, you could do connected cars. Or if you're a BFSI, you can start with investor education or even reduce the load on your call center by having people to interact with voice assistants for servicing their account. I could simply say, okay, Google, I need statement of my mutual fund. And boom, it's available on my inbox. So this kind of conversational interactions with brands are possible, and there are many brands doing it. And you could always delight your users with some fun use cases. For example, Ghana Antakshari, it's an experience we built where you could play India's most favorite sing-along game with Google Assistant, and it's powered by Ghana. Putting AI to work is incredibly fun. It's the birth of conversational commerce as we know it. So people could be ordering it with their voice, and it's completely secure. There can be a voice pin, and we are seeing the great beginning right now. You could build a more inclusive marketing agenda because voice is the most natural form of man-machine interaction. So even if somebody doesn't read or write, they could speak, and that presents a great opportunity to build a inclusive marketing agenda for all kinds of audience. How do you start? Where do you go from here? Well, we have a workshop on PUI, or the Voice User Interface Design, as part of Impact Series. You could join us and get started with your brand journey on voice assistants. See you soon. This is Sri Raman from Agraya.
So as you can see, that was the agenda for day 2. Thank you so much, Mr. Thiagarajan, for that insightful session once again. And that brings us to the end of day 1. I would like to thank all the speakers for their valuable time, and of course, to everyone present out here. We had some key insights about the industry, and we also got to understand how to keep the pace and expectation of today's tech-savvy yet socially conscious consumers, as well as the evolving tech landscape. I hope you all enjoyed the first virtual session, which was designed to help the marketers, and absolutely a pleasure to once again have all of you here. On behalf of MMA, I would like to thank all our partners and sponsors for making this possible. Presenting partner, of course, is InMobi and Sony Live, a program and streaming partner, Unreal Engine, masterclass partner, Google, corporate partners, Ad Colony and Oracle, creative partner, Waze, and virtual event partner, the Experiential Hub. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this session, and it is an integral part of the theme that is Shape the Future of Modern Marketing. We'll continue the same for day 2 as well. Thank you so much to all the attendees who gave their valuable time to us. We'll see you tomorrow at 1:50 sharp with new sessions and, of course, some amazing speakers. People who missed out on session can see it online on our social media platforms. Of course, we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Of course, till then, you can lock arms with us and use the hashtag Shape the Future of Modern Marketing. We'll be really glad to see you sharing the good word. And the next day of speakers that you can see on the screen right now, if you want to access more information, please go to the MMA site, and we'll be really happy to share everything that you need. With that, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We had a great day 1. We're looking forward to see you on the day 2. This is MMA Impact India 2020.